China hit the U.S. with retaliatory action moments after Trump's tariffs took effect. Beijing announced it would levy an additional 15% tariff on American coal and liquefied natural gas and a 10% tax on crude oil, farm equipment, and a string of vehicles. China's market regulator also launched an antitrust probe into Google parent company Alphabet and placed two U.S. companies, Calvin Klein parent company, PVH Group, and Illumina, on a watch list. Now, some of the implications here is you start to think about some of the imports that the U.S. gets from China, and it's also important to note where some of the companies that we've heard from even early on this earnings season, they're seeing some of their stock rattled by this. And one of the names that continues to come to mind for me because of the growth that is banking on China, specifically Caterpillar, and not moving a ton here pre-market. Perhaps investors were really already looking at what could potentially come forward and how that could also impact Caterpillar's ability to kind of move further into that region. But additionally, that comes back to what China was talking about with some of the manufacturing equipment that they are targeting as part of this tit for tat that is now once again, what is old is new again.
Yeah, exactly. We're also getting reports right now from the Financial Times that the FT is saying that China regulators are looking at launching a formal probe into Intel. Remember that this follows some of the antitrust action, the probe that was taken last month, or 2 months ago, actually, now back in December, mid-December, December 9th, by China when they started looking into NVIDIA. We clearly saw the reaction on the stock that day. So here we are with Intel. That news this morning here from the FT, the fact that China's regulators are looking at a formal probe into Intel. It's putting a bit of pressure here on the stock this morning, off just about 0.7%. But I think when you step back and you start to think about what ultimately this means, what this signals about the next several months, the next several years under the Trump administration, what that geopolitical landscape is potentially going to look like, and the differences in negotiations between how everything has played out over the last 24 hours when it comes to U.S.'s relationship with Mexico and Canada versus China, and China obviously striking back, not wasting any time. And they did this, I think, in a way that makes a lot of sense, in a way that hasn't necessarily disrupted the markets. And we certainly are seeing that play out here in the early action this morning, but also especially when you take a look at the action overseas, specifically in Asia. When we take a look at the approach here of Xi Jinping, very much he was quick to retaliate, but not necessarily putting China's economy at risk. And very much they're signaling, and there has been lots of thoughts that he would be willing to go even further to help further prop up the economy that has struggled just a bit. But again, when you take a look at the futures impact, we're not seeing too much. You've only had the Dow right now on track to open the day in the red.
And really a question, especially for the investors that really look ahead to any types of the implications for what this means for some of the names that they're already invested in and how far into the future they are looking. This was largely expected when you had this much prioritization from the incoming Trump administration at the time, prioritizing tariff talks and being tough on some of our trading partners, and then the action of some of that as well. Now continue to think for investors about where else this might spill over to. And I start to think about some of the companies that have the largest revenue exposure. I think about Broadcom specifically. That company over the past month, I think that's been down by about 8% over the past month, 7.9%. I think about Apple as well and some of the growth that, of course, they will talk about within the region as well. That's down by about 6.9% over the past month. So that's where we might see some of the permeation of the thought process continue to move from the investor community.